All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Here we are. Here we are. Just who we are. Chances are we'll be the stars. I just quoted Maurice White. I don't know if I'll be stricken by YouTube for doing that. I hope not. But anyway, what's happening, people? It's been a minute. And we're going to talk today. I'm going to talk today about a few things that are important. So, who's in the house? Announce yourself. And we will begin shortly. We're going to talk about a topic that I gotta stop saying we gotta talk about a topic that many keep sending me questions about. Also, I've noticed that it is in my top 10 most viewed, well, the video on the Auratones, but it's in my top 10 most viewed videos. So it's apparently a topic that keeps popping up, and I think we need to address it. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why shortly. I'm going to give you 5 short reasons why. So who's in the house? We got Mr. Pirate Brain. Yes, sir. What's happening, man? Good to see you. Yes, and we're going to have a few more shortly. So, incognito, I guess I have, whoa, we got a brother from Cape Town, South Africa, my brother. Wow, that's a time difference and a distance difference as well. Yes, I have been incog for a while. Yeah, man. A lot is happening on my end. You know, I'm trying to prepare. I don't know if you guys are doing it, but I'm trying to prepare for post COVID, man. You got to have an iron in the fire, B, because like I said, this too shall pass. So, you know, we got to get on it. So what's up, everybody? I'm here. You are looking at the shot from my current situation with the control room. After I'm still having some work in progress, y'all. I'm gonna tell you the truth. So, with that in mind, so we got Black Drum Hippie, man, and I'm glad that you're here, brother. Good to see you. You know, and we got Armando. What's up, man? I made it this morning. Weather music, yes, sir. I've been testing. You know, the reason why things have been up, down, and sideways. I've been testing according to my analytics. You know, I'm a numbers guy. So we were moving to Mondays and Tuesdays for the stream, and it was like come see, come saw. But now I think I have a better handle on who's available and when. So I think I'm gonna move back to Sunday, because that's when everybody is pretty much around. Looking good? Yeah, I'm trying, man. Listen, you know, I was my wife and I, we were just joking because we were, you know, connecting with some friends of ours recently, and it's like you either got the COVID shed or the COVID spread. But I've been hitting the gym kind of hard because normally I like cycling as my exercise, and I've been doing free weights for the last year. You know, so weight training will do something different to your body, and it has for the whole year because I haven't had the road bike training. So with that in mind, that's the deal. But thanks, brother. I appreciate you. Weather music, you made it this morning. Yeah, man. We're going to talk about a topic that I keep getting quite a few messages on, and I think that folks really need to grasp the importance of considering adding Auratones to your setup. So we're going to get into that in a minute. I'm just trying to wait for a few more to log on, but I'm glad that you all are here, really, honestly, especially my brother from South Africa. Yes, sir. Rajan Govinder. Govinder, tell me if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I really don't like botching people's names, but yeah. But it's all good, man. It's all good. Been well. My live room is still under construction. You know, I get a few pennies on a job and then I do a little bit more work to it. But where we stand right now, it's being tuned and treated acoustically, and at the same time, I have more wiring that has to be done in terms of the headsets as well as the main connection panel, and then it's all done. You know, I'll be able to start doing more sessions. Behind you, what you see is on my left is my composing station, my temporary composing station, because I'm gonna have to get a dedicated probably laptop. The laptop I have is working, but it's kind of old and kind of slow. So, you know, yes, Armando, you said it's a great topic. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's important that I think everybody needs a pair of Auratones. I mean, that's just my opinion, and that's just based on using them for so many years. So yes, sir. We got Mr. Morpheus. What's good? I'm good, brother. I'm glad you are here. I'm doing well. Just glad to get back in the saddle. Somewhat, I was explaining my disappearance is based on my analytics, and based on the analytics, it says that most people were available on Mondays and Tuesdays as before, but I get more on the playback on the Mondays and Tuesdays, and I think it'll be better just to connect directly with everybody on a Sunday, which is when most people are available. So here we are. So Auratones, and let's get back to the main screen. I'm going to give you 5 quick reasons you need to buy a pair of Auratones right now. I don't know how many of you are using a secondary set of monitors, or are you just using your primaries for all of your work? Now, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Technically, having one pair to reference. But for the time that I've been doing this, which is a very long time, every studio outside that I've ever visited has always had between 2 to 3 sets of monitors. You had your far fields, you had your mid fields, which was maybe when Genelex 1031 started to become popular, they were those. And then you had your nearer fields, which were like the NS10s at the time. Years ago, when I was younger, like a kid, what the near fields were considered Auratones. Now, let's talk about 5 reasons that it's best that you consider. And I'm not trying to shout on some, I think people are talking about the baritones and all of these knockoff brands. There are a whole lot that you can choose from right now. But Auratones is what I'm most familiar with. Now, the other ones may be just as good in terms of referencing what you need to reference, okay, by and large. But you got to keep in mind that the mid-range is an extremely crucial aspect of each and every instrument, as well as vocal that you will record. If you can't reference the mid-range well, chances are, if you are using an outside mastering house, they're going to have to do all this tweaking, and time turns into money. So, with that being said, reason number 1, Auratones are best for referencing, like I just said, the mid-range. The mid-range is essentially, that's where all the information is. All of the information. If you can get that right, I would say maybe 90% of your mix issues that you may have are subsided. You don't have that problem. by the time you get to mastering, especially if you're referencing your mids in more than one way. What do I mean? Outside of the Auratones, I believe you need a metering system. Whether you want to use the spectrum analyzer on your DAW, or if you want to use a dedicated spectrum analyzer like the TC Electronic Clarity, it's up to you. But if you're using a dual way of monitoring each and every aspect of your mix, that's vocals or instruments or whatever, for the mid range, for the purpose of looking at the mid range, then, like I said, 90% of your problems are solved if you get that right. Get that right. Part of getting it right is knowing the timbre, and this is what I see. There are a lot of videos about the reason your mix is not working, or the reason you're doing this, that, or the third. Part of the reasons I believe why most have this problem is not just referencing, but not knowing the timbre of the instrument. Timbre, Timbre, of the instrument that you're referencing. What do I mean? Let's say, for instance, you get a gig where you have to record a string quartet, but your forte, you don't want to say no to the money, but your forte, by and large, is hip hop. Now, I'm at opposite ends of the spectrum here. Classical on one end and hip hop on the other. If you're unfamiliar, right, with the timbre of a cello or the timbre of a violin or viola, it makes more sense to first familiarize yourself with the timbre of the instrument, really get to know what that sounds like, the bowing of the string sounds like, one, and then two, you need to be able to reference what the mid-range looks like on that instrument, because like I said, all instruments, if you get one of those charts that have all the instruments that you could probably record, and you look at it on the frequency spectrum from 20 hertz all the way to 20,000, you'll see each and every one of them pass through the middle. So you need to know what the lower mids sounds like on that instrument, as well as the upper mids, so that you could tweak accordingly, or you could make better microphone choices while you're recording. It just makes more sense to do it from that perspective, as opposed to, hit or miss, or you're trying to guess what it sounds like. So being familiar with the timbre of the instrument, that's vocal or instrument, that you're recording, is of utmost importance. And what better way to reference the mids than to use a monitor that is mid-range specific? It just makes more sense. It solves your problems. It's not going to cause you to get into the second reason, which is it forces you to make better equalization choices. You're less apt to over equalize. You need to be able to reference the lower mids, carefully, because that's creeping into the bass area. And if you have the lower mids encroaching on a space, or if the instrument is improperly equalized and it's encroaching on the space of a bass specific instrument, you're creating problems for yourself. You are definitely creating problems for yourself. On the opposite end of that, like I said, forcing you to make better EQ choices, the opposite end of that would be the highs. Now, because Auratones are mid-range specific, you're not going to over-equalize the high end. It would be foolish when you think about it, because the speaker itself is not designed for that purpose. So because, this is just some of the foolish observations I've made throughout the years, to assume that a mid-range specific instrument or monitor in our case, can give you the information that you needed to top in. That's nonsense when you think about it, because it's not designed for that purpose. You know, it's designed to give you information that's right down the middle. You know, so if I can't hear the hi hat as you solo it, or as crispy as you want to hear it on a Auratone, then it's not going to give you that. You know, it's not going to allow you to reference it the way you may want to hear it. But that's not the purpose of the monitor. So if you go and you over crank your EQ because you want to be able to hear the hi hat in a specific way on an Auratone, the chances are you're going to over equalize that instrument. Then when you hit the mains, it's going to be like, okay, now I have this assault happening on my ears because now the mains are giving you an over equalized version of that instrument because you decided that because I couldn't hear it on a mid-range specific monitor, I decided to crank up the 10K by 6 dB. With that in mind, this is for the youngsters. I want you all to understand something. An equalizer is a frequency specific amplifier. I'm going to say that again. An equalizer, the equalization plugins that you're using replicate a frequency specific amplifier, which means when you see that you're cranking 6 dB on a 10K signal, it's taking that and it's amplifying that particular frequency by that amount. It's just an amplifier that's frequency specific. So you got to keep those things in mind in addition to what the bell curves are on equalizers. But if you keep that in mind, then you're less apt to make foolish equalization choices if you're using Auratones. You won't over equalize the top end, and you won't allow the lower mids to encroach on the bass. Okay? So keeping those in mind. Let's go to reason number 3. It forces you to make better compression choices. Okay? I'm going to say that again. It forces you to make better compression choices. If your bass is out of control, I'm going to tell you right now, for you youngsters, all right? Don't go cranking the bass and you got a hip hop track happening. Don't go cranking the bass like on like the sub frequencies, and then you're going to call yourself hitting the speaker select and you click in the Auratones and you got an out of control bass. You will blow that driver. You're going to blow the driver because you might be over driving too much energy through a driver that can't handle it. It's not that it can't handle bass. It's that it can't handle the force or the energy required of a bass specific frequency. You know, what do I mean? If you crank open the back of like, let me take a monitor. Let me get a good monitor. A Genelec 1031. Let's take that. Or the Dynaudio, the big ones. I forget the BM15s, I think it is. The magnet in the back of them things is like this big. Now, there's a reason why magnets in the back of drivers are big. To handle energy, you know? And it has to be able to dissipate that extra energy in terms of heat. That's why you got the big heat sinks on the back, okay? So don't go and assume, okay, because the bass is banging on your 8 inches, great, that you can automatically hit the speaker select and jump to your Auratones with that. Chances are, if that compression, if you don't have the bass properly sitting in the track well, even at low volumes, if you could tell, you'll hear it. Turn the volume down, or even on any hip hop track you're working on. If you just feel the bass, that's more than enough. But if that bass sounds a little flubby and it sounds out of control, and you could tell when it's out of control, it'll sound just obnoxiously loud, and just the spread on it between all the other elements in the track just becomes so obtrusive, if you will. you're going to have to find a way to make sure that you got that compressor set properly. Now, I'm not talking about you going and you squeezing the life out of the bass, because if you do that, then that's a detriment as well. You know what I mean? You don't want to squeeze the life out of the track, but you don't want you want your bass track to translate from your mains to the Auratones well, even if you're soloing it, even if you hit the solo switch on the track. When you're referencing that, you don't want it when it jumps from your 8 inches down to the Auratones to sound flubby and out of control, because then you might blow that driver in the Auratones. So then now you have to think, okay, well, how can I get the bass to sit better? That is a combination of how the bass is recorded initially. If you're using outboard instruments, you got to make sure you record a little at a time. That's the key to getting a good bass track. You don't want it to be so bombastic going in, and you don't want it to be bombastic in terms of the overall mix. You want it to sit well. So when you're listening on Auratones, it'll tell you. You compare the lowest part to maybe the vocal. That's a good place to start. Let's say that, for instance, because the bass is known to underpin a track. The bass frequencies underpins the entire mix, okay? If you understand that and you put the vocal in there, and then suddenly it's like, okay, it's stepping all over the vocal frequency-wise. It just sounds out of control and it's not sitting well. If it's not sitting well on the Auratones, trust me, it's not going to sit well on your 8 inches. And by the time you go to master it, hopefully you're not mastering yourself. That's another topic unto itself. Give it to fresh ears, someone who's never heard the track. If you go to mastering, or if you go to a mastering house or a dedicated mastering engineer, and he's like, you need to fix the bass before you give this track back to me, then that's, a clear indicator that you did not pay attention to the details in the bass. And that's where most of the problems is. I did a video some time ago about mixing with a subwoofer and why it's important, and how I was sitting in on Debella Morgan's mastering session, and with a friend of mine, and he turned out and Keith Shockley calls up and was like, what's this click? The click was a sub bass frequency that you couldn't hear on Auratones, that was missed. So which means if they mixed on those little NS10s, it was missed on the NS10s, but it'll show up on a larger frequency, and the same is true the other way around. So the detail that needs to be paid in terms of your compression, while you're mixing, while you're recording the instrument, is of utmost importance, because it's going to allow the balances in the end to work out a lot better. Bass can overpower a track. It can overpower a track. So your job is to make sure that, okay, I got it contained. You don't want to over compress it going in. You just want to tame the peaks, and then you give it a little bit more during mix time. And then by the time you hand it off to mastering, they're going to give it a little bit more of limiting, so that all these elements are working well together. So that was Carlton Batts, who I was referencing at the Hit Factory, my mastering engineer friend. But questions. I got to 3 different slides so far. So let me just move this over. I'm looking at my screen real quick, and let's see what we got happening. Okay. Thank you, Jack Simpson. This is value. Thanks for this valuable information. What do you think is the difference between the Auratones, Avatones, and NS10s in the mid-range? Okay. I'm going to lean in the direction of Auratones. I'm going to get to that reason shortly. Avantones, I don't know. I'm going to put it to you this way. I was told a long time ago that you need a lot of power for bass frequencies. And that's a fact. That's a fact. Because bass waves are so god-awful large. I mean, you could tell a good monitor, which is like why the Dyne Audio BM15 sound great, the Genelec 1031 sound great, because the the energy and the amplification required is on tap. You know what I mean? Why I may not favor the Avantones is because when it comes to like a small speaker like that, I would rather pair it with my amplifier so that I make sure that if I'm giving it enough juice to handle each and every frequency. I don't know where those Avantone um, amplifiers that they got in the back of these things were manufactured. And all manufacturing of amplification is not equal. It's not. Not. Some people really bastardize Class D amplification. I'm getting technical indeed, but a Class A amplifier by like a company like Hafler or Crown, these are people who are in the business of amplification. That's their line of business. Pair that with Auratones, and that's their line of business. You can't go wrong. But Avatones, I don't know, man. Don't go trying to crank no heavy bass through them things, because if you, like I said, you could blow the driver. Let's just say that happens. Okay, I blew the driver. You got a built-in amplifier. Now the whole thing has to be repaired, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But I think you do yourself a disservice by having in such a small speaker a built-in amplifier. You're better off with a passive design. NS10s, the problem with them is being able to find the components. And don't fool yourself. Think about it. If Yamaha made the NS10s, right? And they come up now, I think they have the HS series. They wrote the book on the NS10s. Then just buy the HS series. You know what I mean? You can't go wrong. It's only going to be an improvement on a standard, right? So you do yourself a favor by buying what's already the standard. Avantone, they knew. Listen, man. Okay, I ain't trying to crack on the company because they'll see this video. Next thing you know, I'm getting hate mail. A brother's tired of that. That's whack. I'm tired of it. But I've been around long enough to know that if something is your line of business and you've excelled at it and you've become the bellwether and you've become the authority on this particular topic, if you wrote the book, you wrote the book. I remember when I was in school, right? I'll give you an example. The department head of the music department wrote a particular book on theory, right? And he had an adjunct come in, and during one of the lessons, the adjunct says, "Well, I believe that the department head is wrong." And then someone blurted out, "How can he be wrong? He wrote the book. He hired you, but you're going to stand by and call it, well, he's wrong." How are you going to argue with a person who has the expertise in a particular area? So if you are Avantone, and I'm not cracking on them, they may have it down to a science, and suddenly you are making speakers. You are making microphones. And God only knows what else is being made in China. Come on, man. You just somebody trying to turn a buck, as far as I'm concerned. I ain't trying to crack on you, but I've been in business long enough to know, listen, there's a reason why a Crown and Hafler are primarily the two amplifiers you will see if you go to an outside studio and you see NS10s. They are powered by a Crown, a Bryston amplifier, a Hafler amplifier, or a Crown amplifier. I guarantee it. I guarantee you that much. So if you want to go into your little local, professional recording environment and take a little gander for yourself, chances are that's what you're going to see. So when you got a company that's, just trying to take advantage of capitalism for the sake of taking advantage of capitalism, then what is it that you actually do? Because I see you make microphones, you make this, you make that. You can't be a jack of all trades. So I'd rather a passive design. Long story short with your question, I'd rather have a passive design, okay? So next one. Okay, signifying importance of calibration. Oh, okay, beats for less. I'm glad that information helped you, brother. Okay, and De Soul says one R&B producer duo that always had the bass sitting. Yes, yes, Harvey Mason. Well, when you think about it, there's a reason why probably he has that facility, Harvey Mason Jr. That is because his father is a drummer. So he has a good point of reference. Okay, and let's see. Dell mixed it. What's up, brother? There's a passive version of Avantone. Yeah. Well, I mean, you listen, to each his own. I ain't trying to crack on Avantone. This is not a beat up Avantone, session, if you will. It's more of a I've been in professional environments enough to know what pros are using on the regular, and chances are, if you go to the Hit Factory. So if I go to the Hit Factory tomorrow, not Hit Factory, well, Berkeley took them over. What was once the power station, you're not going to see Avantones in there. I can guarantee you that much. A friend of mine, John Kilgore, a Broadway producer, Broadway engineer, as well as he owns his own facility where he records a lot of Broadway music. He has NS10s, and you're not going to see Avantones. I know that they're competitively priced, but for what it's worth, you might as well just get, a passive pair of Auratones. At least if, let me get to my next point, at least it is a safe bet for most genres, period. You can't go wrong. They wrote the book, y'all. They wrote the book on it. Avantone is a new jack. All right? They're new jacks. So how can you argue? You can't argue. I was told this a long time ago. You can't argue with someone who's born the heat of the day. They were there when the whole situation started. Auratone, that is. And everybody else followed. So it's a safe bet for most genres. You can't go wrong. I'm not trying to. First of all, this video is not sponsored by Auratone. I'm giving you all the benefit of me, and I'll probably post a picture of me at the age of 17 in a studio with what? Auratones. The old wooden with the two little screws in the back. Okay? So how are you gonna argue with somebody? It's like you walking up to Michael Jordan telling him how to shoot a free throw. You could be remember the kid that challenged Michael Jordan? How you gonna argue with the best? He's the guy. And then Michael showed up at practice and scorched him. You can't argue with somebody who is he's the guy. And I think for the sake of, and I know with the youngsters, I guess it's testosterone or I don't know what, but they want to get up and have these debates with you, like, oh, what is the best? I had somebody email me, this is the best. Okay, if it's working for you, I will argue with you. If it's working for you, that's fine. Good for you. Blow that driver and then let's have a conversation. Listen, y'all. I got somebody who was talking with one of the commenters yesterday. He was like, well, what did you do about your Dynaudios? They are in a box in storage right now. $1,000 sitting on a shelf. And then what's my daily drivers? The JBLs. Because I can call up JBL and get a replacement very easily. I literally called all over the world to get Dynaudios repaired. And then when I find out how to get them repaired and how much it's going to cost me, come on. Who got money to be going in their pocket? Here you go, $400. Crack it open just to look at it. Nah. Nope. That $400, you might as well put another two and go and get. So, I'd rather go out and buy it. And I'm hearing some really good things about the Cali audio joints. And they got a 3-way out on the Calis. I'm going to cover that in the future. But I'd rather take that money, okay, and spend it on a brand new pair. Because I got to keep going. I ain't got no time to be sitting having downtime. Oh, Mr. Henry, I need you to do it. I can't because I don't have a secondary set of monitors. And I think at this point, I'm up to about 6 pairs of monitors. 4 of the 6 are in storage. Okay? because I just don't have a use for them, or they're needing repaired. I had an old pair of Toas that and those were very good monitors, the ME series that I bought back in the 90s. That the cones, after a while, the little foam around the cone starts to go. It just disintegrated. You have to get it reconed. You know what I mean? So these are tools. These are tools, people. Okay? And if your tools fail, you can't do the job. You know, so in terms of Auratones, they're a safe bet for most genres because it references the mids very, very well. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that there probably isn't another monitor other than maybe what came after the Auratones, the NS10s, that does just as good a job. Okay, so if you're trying to reference your mid range in a safe and confident way, you can't go wrong with these Auratones. They're a safe bet for most genres. So let's jump to slide and reason number 4. I said safe bet. Number 5. Oh, I'm here already. They are the oldest near field monitor on the market. That is a fact. Auratones are 50 plus years old. The company introduced their first product in 1960. So that made them 60 last year. Okay? Again, how are you going to argue with somebody who's been doing this for 60 years? You know, but you're going to have those who, and everybody's hearing is different. I get it. Everybody's likes and budgets are different. But if you're trying to do something on a particular level, right, and you know that pros use these tools to get the job done, and if you have a particular, a particular mix or that you reference that you really like, and the guy tells you his secrets, if it's Avantone that he referenced them on, then fine. But know this, and I'm going to get a little technical on you youngsters real quick. All speakers have what's called a measure of dispersion. Now, you see my hand? It looks like a speaker cone from this perspective, right? That measure of dispersion is determined in degrees, okay? This little curve is set in degrees. Let's just say that your room is not tuned properly and the measure of dispersion on the driver that's used in a particular speaker does not agree with how your room is tuned. You are going to struggle to get that mix to sound good. I don't care what you're using. So if it gets down to the quality of the tools that you're using, wouldn't you want to lean in the direction of a trusted, tried, and true tool working for you? Because the dispersion is equivalent to all drivers. Large ones, 8 inches. There's a reason why these JBLs, the sweet spot in the JBLs is so wide. It's because of dispersion. There's a reason why when you go to concerts and you see the rig that's curved, it's for dispersion. It's throwing sound in a direction. So if the driver that's being used in a particular product that you want to argue over sucks, and it's just terrible, on the bench I'm talking about, if I'm a technical person and I'm testing and it's like a terrible design and the magnet is this big in it, and if it's just terrible by design, what makes you think that the product is just great? You know? Can it work in certain circumstances? Sure. But wouldn't you want to go with the guy that wrote the book? Wouldn't you want Michael taking the last shot in the game? Why would I want the rookie taking the last shot? He don't know what he's doing. He just getting here. I want the guy that's been doing it for the longest. So that leads me to my bonus 6 point. They are an easy repair. They're foolproof. The company is here in America. They're right in Nashville. You could get them on the phone, and they got all the parts you require to make sure that your Auratones have the long life that you want them to have, because they wrote the book. My final point. They wrote the book. They've been in business for over 60 years. Quincy Jones likes them. Michael Jackson's Thriller was probably mixed on them. And God only knows the amount of gold and platinum records that company is responsible for. You cannot argue with somebody who's been doing it that long. Y'all go buy your Avantones. You can go buy all these other brands. Now, there are other brands that are coming out that are good. Don't get me wrong. But they wrote the book. Can't argue with them. Okay? So let's just jump to some questions. Let's go. Dell Mix It. There's a passive version of Avantones. We copied it. We got that. Okay. Here's Dale So said that the Yamaha HS will expose your mid-range issues. Mixed on those for years. I'm on Focals. I think they can get fatigue. That's another thing. Your monitors have to allow you to mix for long hours without you becoming fatigued. Period. Your ears are gonna get tired. You're gonna work that mix. You referencing back and forth, and a day later, it's like, oh my God, this sounds terrible. Why? Because after a while, your ears just get fatigued. Period. So, yeah, to your point. Yes, sir. Oh, hey, Del Mixer said we should find out if CLA actually uses them. I think you could answer that question. My man ain't doing nothing but padding his retirement account. That's all he doing. And God bless him. God bless him, because he is the guy. He is born the heat of the day. And yeah, I'm going to endorse your product. You're going to give me $25,000 to do it. That don't mean I'm using it. You know how many people don't use the equipment that they're endorsing? They just when they call them gear whores. I'm not saying that's Chris. I'm not calling him that. What I'm saying is that, it's a transaction. You need my name to sell your product. Yes. Okay, well, good. Give me $25,000. I will do a plug for you. What's wrong with that? Like I said, it's capitalism. So, hey, more power to him. He is endorsing Heritage Audio, this one, that one, and the third one. God bless him. I am not mad at him. Greetings. Electric Hourworks says, greetings from South Wales, New York, USA. Good to see you, brother. It's been a minute since you've been here. And he says, I've thought about buying some Auratones and I have the 1982. Yes. You see? Okay, here's a guy. I don't know if you all saw what Electric Hourworks just said. The main purpose of the Auratones is beyond using them for mixed purposes, is to reference what everybody's listening on. Somewhat substandard listening circumstances. That's earbuds, whether you don't have an audiophile like stereo system, or they listening on these little what you call them, little portable speakers, Bluetooth speakers. So if the end product is being played on something that's somewhat substandard, then why would you go out and well, you can, don't get me wrong, it's your choice. If you want to go out and spend $5,000 on some monitors, that's your business. If you could afford it, God bless you, I ain't mad at you. But at the same time, you need a pair of less than likely speakers to reference on. So that's what Auratones represents, what everybody's daily driver is. And most people are listening on these earbuds. So it's going to give you a true point of reference for your purposes as an engineer. Because if it's going to wind up in that particular mix environment or listening environment, then you want to be able to reference what everybody else is listening to. And he said he uses a 1982 Hitachi boombox. That's a good option. I don't know how you, other than mixing it and playing back your mix on a CD or something, I don't know how you would mix it or reference it using a boombox, but it gives you a the truer point of view of what everybody is normally listening to, be it the earbuds or be it a substandard Bluetooth speaker frequency wise, or a less than likely audiophile type system. So, the average, system. And I don't think they, to tell you the truth, if you go to Best Buy right now, I don't think you could even buy an audiophile type circumstance because everybody's listening to stuff on Bluetooth. So, good point, Electric Owl Works. Yes, sir. Beats for Less. What's my thoughts on Focals? Haven't used them. Have heard. I have friends that mix on them and love them. I told someone recently, and they had a similar type question. I was like, if I had just limited money starting out, the first pair of monitors I would buy Auratone, just because, like I said, you need to be able to reference the mids well. An Auratones and a sub, you're set. I guarantee you. Add that to your mix arsenal, and trust me, your mixes, once you pop them onto your mains, it's gonna be like ooh, because you took care of the bottom end. The sub is referencing carefully the bottom end. The Auratones are referencing the mids well, and if you took care to make sure that everything equalization wise was just judicious and compression wise was just as careful, then you shouldn't have a problem. By the time you pop the mains on, it should be like, oh, okay, I'm straight. It can go to mastering and you could be confident in what you just mixed, So Focals, I've heard great things about them, but I think it gets down to in the grander scheme of things, it gets down to marketing. Because when you go on a page of like a Sweetwater, it's like, God, man, you got the pick of the litter at that point. Then it becomes a matter of opinion. So what I say do, and this goes for anyone, if when you buy them, if they don't sound good in your mix environment, don't try and soup yourself up, gas yourself, be like, oh, yo, I got Focals, and they just because they're Focals. Because your ears are going to be telling you the truth. That's provided you ain't deaf. If you deaf, that's a different story. You know what I mean? You can't hear. If your top end is all curved off after 5,000, then you deaf. Period. But when you stick them things up in your mix environment and you go and you crank a mix through it, and it's like, trust me, you go and you pulling in clients, and when you go to crank it up, you're gonna be why? Because when you first bought them that they wasn't sounding good. But you just because you want to have what's the standard. Now, Focals probably sound great. Just like Dynaudios will sound great everywhere. But I'm going to tell you, Dynaudios in a well-tuned room, as well as maybe Focals and Atoms in a well-tuned room, sound outstanding. Those can sit by themselves, and you could do an entire mix on them, and you could confidently walk away and say, I didn't have to reference on the Auratones. In a well-tuned room is the operative word. Well-tuned room. If your room got bass issues, Focals ain't going to solve your problem. Period. Dynaudios will not solve your problem. Genelex will not solve your problem. You need to address the issues in your environment. Which is why I went 2 feet deep in my bass traps, because bass waves are long. That energy is absorbed somewhere, y'all. So if you can't reference the energy well, okay, by a sub, then you don't know what you have. It's like walking into a dark house that you're unfamiliar with and talking about, I know the floor plan. No, you don't. You can't even hear it. So how are you referencing it? So it gets down to marketing. Focals, Atoms, Eves, this one, that one, the third one. I'd rather go to somebody, and I think that's how I've operated most of my time. Go to somebody who you know that you respect, and ask them what they're mixing on. if you know and you respect them and ask them, well, how did you get that? You know? And then if they tell you, well, I mixed on this, but I also had my room treated, and that's money well spent, because once your room is treated, okay, half your issues are gone. You could pretty much, like I said, put any type of speaker in. It doesn't make a difference. It sounds great. Why? Because you know you had your room treated properly. And bass is the number one issue that most mastering engineers will tell you. So follow the bass by the mid range. You need to be able to focus on the mid range. And if you can't reference it well, then how do you think that you're going to be able to turn out the best possible mix? You can't, because your tools are not giving you the true picture that you need. Okay, so let's jump to some more questions. Okay. Electric Hour says the Hitachi boombox has an aux input. Excellent. So that's good. That's good. Okay, check out the mind. Okay, I will. Okay, cool. Del Mix It. I got you, brother. All right, so any other questions? Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. Anybody. Oh, I want to give a shout out. Yeah, to my man Touchtone DSG. Yeah, man. Really nice. Said, gotta see what this is about, because I've been an inspiration to him. I just want to tell you, brother, you're more of an inspiration to me. I'm not one of these people that's like, clingy and like get all souped up and like competitive. Nah, you gonna get plenty of that if you in this business long enough. A whole lot of people that be like, yo, what's up, and they be like, as soon as they turn, they ain't thinking about you. But I want to see you succeed, brother. So if I've been an inspiration to you and your channel, God bless you. And if there's any way I can help you, reach out to a brother. Okay? So that's Touchtone DSC. I'm a DSG. Go and check his channel out. It's Touch, Touch, Tone, TONE, DSG. Everybody go over and check him out and give the brother some love. All right? And let's jump down to some more comments with DSP. Okay. Hey, what's up? I got HS8s and been thinking about getting a Yamaha sub. Do you think this is... No. You know what I'm finding? I'm going to tell you the truth about your question. This is 30 Killers Beats. What's up, brother? You seem like you're new to the live stream. I'm going to tell you the truth. Anytime you have an 8-inch woofer in your monitor, you really don't need a sub. What you need a sub for, and if you're doing hip hop, and anybody that's listening to me right now, and if you're doing hip hop, you need a subwoofer. Stop gassing yourself without mixing without one. Why? Because you need to be able to reference the bottom end. I was saying a long time ago in the live stream, and I don't do hip hop, but somebody told me about this site where you can buy beats, and I went and I researched one of the kids that claims he made 6 figures making beats. I'm like, okay, you making 6 figures? That's a lot of money. Let me see why. When I heard the man's stuff, I was like, oh snap, okay. And then I went and looked at his studio. He had all the tools necessary to craft perfection. So it was no wonder that he was turning out good stuff, because he had the necessary tools. That's the sub. That's good monitors. Maybe, I don't know what he was using as secondary monitors, but he had the right tools for the job. So you cannot do a bass specific genre of music and not be able to isolate that through a monitor control. Because by the time you get to mastering, you're going to have issues, period. Why? Because you didn't have a chance to isolate the bass to hear what it sounds like. You don't have a clue as to whether or not your Fender Rhodes low notes are encroaching on your bass track. You don't know if there's fighting going on between the bass track and maybe a secondary bass track. If you had 2 bass instruments playing at the same time, or if you had a kick drum You don't know if that 808 is causing a problem with your main bass line. You don't know. You don't know. Why? Because you couldn't isolate it. You couldn't isolate it because you don't have a sub. So how can you do a genre of music? This is what I'm saying. How can you do a genre of music but not have the tools to successfully navigate that genre of music from a frequency perspective? You need a sub. You need a sub. So HS8s with a sub, maybe not. But if you're trying to turn out pro tracks where the bass is solid and it sits well in the mix, because that's, trust me, that is where you're going to have most of the problems when you get to mastering in the bottom end. The reason why you're going to have problems is because you could not isolate. You could not take your mains out of the monitor controller and just listen to the bottom end. You couldn't. You know, it goes beyond just soloing it and hearing it. You could do that on the track itself. Sure. Why not? But don't forget, bass extends down to the bottom end. You know, there's a reason why some tracks from a bass perspective sound solid, because they were able to hear sub frequencies, anything below 100. You know, if I'm going to crank up 80 hertz by 2 more dB, what is it going to sound like? You can't really get a good, honest perspective on 80 hertz on speakers that maybe can't handle that type of energy. So I don't care if you go out to Best Buy and buy a sub, it doesn't make a difference. Bass notes are felt. They're felt. They're not heard. You feel bass. So if you can just isolate it on your monitor controller by itself, sure, buy that. But do you need it with HS8s if you're just having fun? No. But if you're trying to turn out client work, you better get yourself a sub. Because you want to be able to compete, man. Ain't nobody gonna buy. I'm like, why is this guy saying 6 figures? Really? Let me check him out. I was like, oh, that's the reason why. He putting his foot in it. And I did a session pre-COVID with this guy from, I think he was from Thailand. He's a beat maker. I wasn't in Thailand. He was the person who hired him as a producer, used his music. He's from Thailand. And his tracks were tight. And I don't do hip hop. I was like, oh, snap. I see the reason why. There's people out there that's taking this thing to a whole other level. So you have to decide, what tools do I need to get to the next level? And if it's a sub, then you go up buy the sub. I advocate, if you're doing R&B or any other type of music that is bass specific, you better get that sub if you want to compete. So, yes, sir, you don't need an HS8. I mean, with HS8, you don't need a sub starting out, but it is advisable. Okay, Beats for Less, DSP. I'm not sure. You're going to have to elaborate on that beat. I was thinking of mini DSP to help out with room correction. What's your thoughts on DSP mix? For room correction, no. It's funny, you know, how people are bringing live sound techniques into controlled environments. Now, room correction software that's being used, from the perspective that I'm familiar with it is that it was for correcting time alignment of a venue that you're recording, that you're providing sound to. Give you an example. A friend of mine invited me to the sound check for Sting. Did a concert at the St. John's Divine. I think it was a benefit concert, but he invited me to the sound check. They did a TV mix, they did live sound mix, and it was being recorded all at the same time. Now, if you've been in a cathedral or any cathedral, they're all designed the same. You know, cathedrals are very deep. But in this particular circumstance, they had, you know, monitors in the front, in the middle of the room, as well as the back. Now, when I tell you that now, if you know how sound travels in time, they time aligned each and every point in that room so you could stand literally anywhere. And the time, if Sting is performing, okay, you could hear him equally in the back as you would in the front. Because they knew to delay the time from the mix to the first set of monitors for the room all the way to the back of the room. What am I saying? That these new techniques that people are using to tune their monitors, and I'm gonna adjust the acoustics or the EQ of the monitor to the room. I don't know. I've never used it, and I know that the techniques come from live sound. So maybe for me, for my thinking says it's more of a gimmick that I wouldn't trust in my own environment. I would rather just know what my issues are in my room and address the issues, as I know for fact, because I had an acoustician come in and tell me, you have bass issues, bro. And the issues that I had was because the room was a square. Now, when I had the room designed, it had a splayed wall. He was like, that don't mean squat. If you run too much energy in this room, you're going to have an issue with the bass. And sure enough, the bass ugly ogre started rearing his head. And I'm sitting up in one client situation. I'm like, trying to play it off like ain't nothing happening, hoping they don't notice. And I'm in my back of my mind, I'm like, yo, this has got to be addressed. So I called the guy and he's like, yo, you trying to drive way too much energy. He said, you need at least 17 to 16 feet of distance between your main position and the back of the room. Why? He said, because you're doing a lot of bass heavy music. And before, when I set the room up, I wasn't. I was doing more vocal oriented music. So as time goes on and things change, you got to make those adjustments. And if your room is the issue, you definitely got to address the room. Don't rely on no software to solve your problems. That's playing with dynamite. And if you got client money, you're definitely playing with dynamite. Because you can't, BS your way out of this one, y'all. If you took somebody's money and you're doing a service for them, and then you give them the mixes, and then they go and play it at the mastering house, and the mastering engineer like, who mixed this? A deaf person? And then they come back to you, it's like, yo, the mastering engineer said you must be deaf. And then it's like, you go back and you mix it, and you're trying your God's hardest. It's not your ears. It's your room. Trust your ears, but also know that your room can become an issue for you to turn out your best work. So I would rather not trust somebody's software to tune my room. I would rather trust the fact that I know my room is properly tuned for the music that I'm going to be doing. So keep that in mind. Yeah, Beats for Less on my Sonar works. I don't know, man. I don't know, to each his own. To each his own. Maybe I'm just, old school, and I do know that you can't argue with numbers. Once these acousticians come in and they look at certain variables in your room, they're looking at certain variables in your room, and your room is the issue, you got to address the issues, man. It's like you got a major surgery circumstance happening and you keep putting a Band-Aid on it. You're addressing the symptoms, but not the real depth of the issue. You got to deal with it from that perspective, or you're just going to keep spinning your wheels. And then you're going to be angry when people come back and say, no, don't give this guy no money because he turns out substandard work. Truth is truth. Sometimes your room can be an issue. And in my case, as I was doing more acoustic music, it became a problem. Here he is, y'all. I want you all to give a hand and a round of applause to Touchtone DSG. I was just talking about you, brother. Thanks for the love, man. I appreciate you, man. All right, and I'm sending some love your way, and y'all make sure y'all go and reach out to Touchtone DSG. Oh man, cool. Good to see you, man. What panels? He asked the question. What panels do I recommend? I don't recommend panels. I recommend that you take yourself to Home Depot and pay your little $50 and get yourself some what's the name? That's a Roxo. Because again, folks is taking people money to the tune of like $90 and $80 a panel. And here it is, you can go get 6 pieces of Roxo, stick that up on the wall, and have your problems really mitigated. I'm not talking about on a low level. I'm talking about this will take care of your bass issues. Period. I did a video on that. You could go and check. You could go and check. You take a box, because don't forget, the energy of a bass note has to be absorbed somewhere. Period. That energy is going to be absorbed somewhere. Where? If your room is too small and can't contain it, it's going to shake the room. It's going to feel like an earthquake. It's just like when you're watching a movie in Dolby Surround. When you hear that sub kick in, when you hear all the action from the movie, you know, that's energy. But the question is, if you're in a mixed environment, where's that energy being absorbed? The room is going to absorb it, and it may hold back the quality of your mixes. So if you take a 24-inch box, a 24-inch deep by 4-inch, or by a 4-foot high box, and you stick that Roxol in it, trust me, put that in your mix position, crank it, tell me how tight your mixes start to sound. That bass energy is going to go somewhere. So why not let it go through a wood, which is wood, the natural property of wood is resonant. Now, as it's resonating and vibrating, that energy is being absorbed somewhere in the Roxol. It's designed for that purpose. So whereas people are putting out a lot of money on all these acoustic products, I mean, it's crazy. Audix stuff is crazy high. It's like, yo, you could go to Home Depot and have your problem solved for $50. $50 solves your problem. I did a video on it, so go and check that out, man. But if you're pretty handy with some tools, you build yourself a 2x4 foot box and put that Roxol in it. You could dress the box up. You could put casters on it. You could finish it, make it look decent in the studio. But the purpose of that box is a huge bass trap. It's a bass trap. So that when you crank the bass, you can be sure that that energy is being absorbed somewhere. Period. So that's how you solve that problem. But panels, nah. You go to Home Depot and look up Roxol, Roxul, safe and sound. Or you could do it on the go on Home Depot on your web browser and see it. And chances are it's about $49 for a bag. The panels are, 16 inches wide, 3 inches deep, fat. Cut that up, put it in the box, put that at your mix position. It could be a table. It could be like a producer's desk for you if you're handy like that, but you're allowing it to serve two purposes. But make sure that you have a way to open it, or you're gonna have to dress it up so that the energy that's going through the fabric is hitting the Roxol, so that all of this energy is being absorbed somewhere. Okay, because you need to find a way to control the bass. Once the bass is controlled, if you got a sub and you got that thing sitting next to it, your problems are solved. Okay. So let's jump forward. Touchstone, that makes sense. Cool, brother. I'm glad you are here. Okay, let's jump. I will for sure. Good. So let's jump back through each and every reason why you should buy a pair of Auratone 5Cs. They are best for referencing the mid-range. They wrote the book. Okay? They wrote the book, y'all. Can't argue with people who wrote the book. Forces you to make better EQ choices. You cannot equalize in or out what you cannot reference. You could touch it at the bottom and you could touch it at the top end, and then you could go to your mains and listen to see if all the touching that you did on your Auratones make good decisions equalization wise. They will either work for you, your EQ will work for you, or it'll work against you. But at least it gives you an honest reference point, okay? 3, it forces you to make better compression choices. If that bass is out of control, okay, when you are listening on them Auratones, they will flap around, and you run the risk of blowing that driver if the bass is not controlled. So during the recording stage and during the mix stage, all the way down to the mastering stage, you add a little at each level, so that by the time you get to mastering and mixing, it sounds nice, it sits well, and it's nice and tight. The 4th reason, it's a safe bet for most genres. All instruments, vocals, pass through the middle. I don't care what genre you're talking about. Period. Whether it's classical, whether it's R&B or hip hop, they all have mid-range. So every genre will benefit from being heard on a pair of Auratones. They are the oldest near-field monitor currently on the market, period, point blank, full stop. Okay? They are the guy. Okay? I want to have tools that I know that every professional has used throughout the annals of music history. And Auratones are the oldest near-field monitor on the market. Go to their website for proof. And the final bonus point is this. They're an easy repair. If you blow a driver, it's a phone call to the company in Nashville and say, hey, I need replacements. And guess what you get? Replacements. Why? Because they're right here in the great old US of A. Period. I'll take one or two more questions and we're going to wrap for the day. Let's start from the bottom. Touchstone DHG says you got to get some. Yes, do that, man. I was on, as a matter of fact, I was checking out your video, one of your videos on those new monitors that you were talking about. Yo, you dropped the grip, B. Bro, dropped the grip. I don't know, man. I ain't got that kind of money. Maybe you rolling in dough. You need to send some brothers some work so I can buy me a pair. Yo, but that was a good video, man. I watched it end to end. Y'all go and check out Touchstone DSG, man. I got nothing but love for you, brother. Nothing but love. Well, let's jump up. Marcin. Okay. All right, my brother. I got the first name. Heliocentric. Okay, heliocentric. For those of you who are into astronomy, heliocentric means that it's sun. Okay? That means that the earth turns around the sun. And if it's geocentric, one would thought that, well, at least Copernicus thought that Copernicus said it was a heliocentric theory. They thought he was a heretic because most people thought that the sun turned around the earth. No. Okay, so my brother with the heliocentrism, don't mean to botch your name, but yes, helio, sun. That means you must be burning hot, brother. And said, invest in SonarWorks. I know this sounds like an advert. I'm studying engineering for years. Okay. And I would not be able to get a right balance without this software. Now my lecturer likes my work. Okay. All right. All right. So with that in mind, why not work from the reverse perspective? Why not approach it from the standpoint of, maybe acoustically treat the room in the same way that seems like if I'm using SonarWorks, I'm tricking the monitor to adapt to the room. And to me, that appears to be kind of dangerous. Now, if you're a lecturer and your professors are saying, oh, I like your work, I would say don't use SonarWorks as a crutch. Because one day after you graduate university, you are going to work in the real world. And if you have allowed SonarWorks to become the thing that you go to give you quality sound, you may find yourself in a work circumstance where that's not available. Then what? I mean, it's nothing like getting it. I say this all the time to you. Nothing like getting it right going on the way in. So if you're walking into the power station or your local professional studio environment, and you know that this room was designed by a well-noted architect and designer, and that they took careful attention to be paid to acoustical detail, then you could trust. I don't care if you stick in a pair of El Cheapo speakers in there. It's going to sound great. You're going to be able to mix on them because it's not going to color your perspective from an audio standpoint. But for me, working the reverse around to trust that this software is adjusting my speakers to the room, I don't know. To me, that seems like somewhat of a crutch. But if your professors are happy with your work, then kudos to you, brother. If it's working for you, it's working for you. You know, I know people who use SonarWorks. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying sometimes, you know, certain things can become a crutch, you know, and you may not have that available to you. And then it becomes a, okay, now what? Circumstance. So just food for thought, you know. All right. All right, my brother. So I'll take one or two more questions and we're going to wrap today. We already ran through each and every one of the reasons I think Auratones are necessary in your studio environment. So let's get one or two more questions in and we're going to wrap. So I will wait and make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, Del makes it. Panel building should be taught in audio school just like soldering. Invaluable skill and another income source. Yeah, but you know, they don't. You know, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. And I deal with young people a lot at the level of disinterest, at the extended opportunities that are available that go beyond just, oh, I want to mix and master. Y'all better get up off that. I'm telling you that right now. The world is moving towards a audio visual standpoint. If you don't know how to get things done from both perspectives, you will find yourself out of work, because providing mixing and mastering services is not solving a problem. You are in competition with tens of thousands of people, and every one of them, including Pookie and them down the street, who got a laptop and calling themselves offering mixing and mastering services. It was different back in the day when you had product you could sell. Everything is online. Everything is being streamed. And all you want to do is offer mixing and mastering service, your gut will be rumbling more often than not. Why? Because you are in competition with everybody with a laptop. Period. So there's a whole lot of opportunities that exist outside of. And I'm going to address some of those in the future live stream. But most of the young people I come in contact with, they come through as interns or whatever the case, and they make a note of what you got, and then after that, it's like, I'm going to start. One person told me point blank, I'm going to start my own studio based on what you're doing. I'm like, okay, you can, but I'm not doing what you're doing. You're going to start a studio. I know how to read and write music. Okay? I'm a drummer. I can arrange for an orchestra if I have to. That's not my thing, but if someone called me for a job, I know if I have to arrange for a 24-piece band, I can. Okay? Can you do that? If the answer is no, then who gets the gig? The guy who's always mixing and mastering? I'm not trying to be no hip-hop engineer. I'm not. I'm a musician first. You know what I mean? So you got to have enough irons in the fire so that in downtime, like COVID, people still need charts written. I can still write and charge $100 per page. If you can't do those things that you don't want to do to survive, then you're going to find yourself out of work more often than not. So, hey man, to each his own. If you just mixing and mastering, God bless you. Trust me, it is not a way to keep the lights on, and I ain't trying to do this as a hobby. Hobby days is over. I got expenses, you know what I mean? So you got to be able to adapt to the times, so let's move forward. Oh, I know I used to teach the next generation. I'm not saying, they just have it and I'm not bashing young people. God bless you. I was young once upon a time, but I don't argue, and I again, maybe it's part of my upbringing as well. I don't argue with anybody. I'll give you an example. Good friend of mine, it's been in the business, has had multi-platinum winning record label, and he's 10 years my junior. He got started maybe 10 years after me. He's the guy. Why would I argue with somebody who got a wall of platinum records and Grammys because I have an opinion? But he got the fact. He got the formula. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna argue with you. We remain friends. I go to him for counsel. He's 10 years my junior. I'm not ashamed, and I'm not so gassed up on myself and my ego that, I'm that jealous of you and your success to the point where I can't come to you for advice. Y'all better get over yourself with that nonsense. You will be out of work more often than not. I go to my peers, and I know a whole lot of people in this business. I go to them for advice. And it's a shame when you can't. It's a shame when you get so gassed up and souped up that think you know everything. And like the kid. I'm looking at what you got so I can compete against you. I'm like, you can't compete against me. I've been doing this a very, very long time. I know how to earn money. Because I have a family to support. But meanwhile, you going to set up in mommy's spare bedroom. And you want to, I got a mortgage, man. You want to set up in mommy's spare bedroom to compete with me? No, I know what it is to pay bills. Okay? I know what it is that when it starts getting tight. I know what it is when this COVID crap shut down 3 contracts for me. I know the real deal. So you going out and buying equipment to compete with me, that's whack. You're not competing with me. You're competing with yourself, first of all. Second of all, you got to have more than one iron in the fire. So it's not a matter of being lost. I don't think that they're lost. I think they just most kids have this sense of entitlement. I came to you to learn what you got. I'm entitled to learn that. I'm giving you my time to learn what you got so I can go and buy what you got to compete with you. That's not a business model for success. Because you're not competing. Because maybe I have a level of depth that you don't have. And you don't have it not because I'm great. It's because I paid my dues over time. Okay? You haven't done that yet. And when you do, there's going to be another person coming behind you. So that's when it gets back to people like Chris Lord-Alge and him. Somebody was talking about him getting his hands in Avantone and all these other people. He ain't doing nothing but padding his portfolio for his future. Because you see what he uses on the regular. You know what I mean? Because he knows what works. You know what I mean? So, to each his own. I love the youngsters, but at the same time, some of y'all need to, get a new business model. And you'll be able to succeed. So, anyway, I ran through all 5. I want to say thank you for everybody for stopping by. Thanks for popping in. I'm going to shout out Touchtone DSG one more time. Thank you for the love, brother. I really appreciate you. And without each and every one of you being here, there would be no me. So I'm not that souped up and gassed on myself to the point where I think I'm that great and I'm giving whiteboard sessions just because I'm studious and know what I'm going. No, it's not about that. It's about trying to provide information to each and every one of you for your own personal success. So if I've done that, I've done my job. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already and you were watching this live stream, please subscribe and don't forget to say hello to each and every one of your families for me. Stay safe.